Hello, and welcome to another edition of BNEWS In Depth. I'm your host, Rich Hosford. When Governor Charlie Baker ordered all non-essential businesses closed and banned eating in all restaurants in March, it hit Burlington hard. The town, known for its many eateries, relies on restaurants both for local taxes and employment opportunities for restaurants. Now that Phase 3 of the state's reopening plan is underway, restaurants are opening, but with some restrictions to help ensure social distancing. How that is working is the subject of today's show. I'll be speaking with Burlington Area Chamber of Commerce President Rick Parker and two leaders of the local restaurant industry about how they are ensuring people have a safe dining experience. Let's get started. I am now joined by Rick Parker, President of the Burlington Area Chamber of Commerce. Rick, thanks for coming in and being in the studio for, first time in a while.
Rich, happy to be here.
I just wanted to start, kind of going back in time a little bit. So when everything kind of closed down, what did you see as like the main effect on restaurants in town?
Number one, the immediate closure. And the unknown of how things were going to progress. I think if you remember back when things first did close, we didn't know how long it would be. Information coming from the state was slow at best, and it was done in a very calculated way. But it was really just not knowing what going forward was going to look like, how long that would be, how long the closures would be. So it was a matter of just getting the information out to the restaurants to best advise them on what to be ready for.
Yeah. And as far as, aid from the state, aid from the federal government, did you see a lot of, restaurants and other small businesses in town be able to kind of take advantage of those programs?
Yeah, if you remember when the first Paycheck protection program, the rules came out, it excluded any businesses above 500 employees. And many of the restaurants that we have in town are part of a larger organization, and so they were left out of that initial plan. What happened in subsequent plans, it was done, broken down to the individual restaurant location, so it gave some much needed relief for payroll for people who were out of work. So that was a big shot in the arm at a time when there was so much unknown and the money just stopped completely.
And, as the initial sort of response came, what was the chamber, what was your role? Like, what were you doing to try to help support local businesses?
Well, if you remember, the reopening advisory committee hadn't been formed initially, so it was really listening in to Zoom meetings on the federal level, state level, and even locally, dealing with the town, Paul Sagarino, Melissa Tentopoulos, and the planning board, to understand where the town was going, where the state was going, and where the federal programs, the relief programs were going to be, to best advise the individual restaurants and the sector as a whole on what we saw the future was looking like it was going to be, and give them the best heads up how to be able to handle it, and to show that even though it was going to be a slow process, that there was some light, and hopefully as we head towards the new normal, we continue to provide that information.
So you're sort of like a conduit of information, helping people understand sort of how to navigate this sort of the unknowns of all of this?
Yeah, I think one of the great things about social media is allows information to be spread quickly, but that involves secondhand information, good information and bad information. You have to go right to the source. And so it was the federal government releasing the CARES programs first, the state government then figuring out how to fill those gaps and make it something that the industries could adhere to, given the exact guidelines. And then at the local level, dealing with, as we progressed into outside dining, how we could work with the town to streamline the process. And honestly, the town did a great job in doing that, and was there to help those restaurants that needed that, that shot in the arm to get going and perform the outside dining.
Yeah, I want to get to those guidelines in a little bit, but before we do, keeping sort of, going along the timeline, once, pickup and delivery was sort of back open, you are also, a source of information not just for restaurants but for the public, letting them know where, who was open, who was, offering those services, and you expanded it beyond members. What made you decide to do that?
Rich, honest truth there, it was the right thing to do. This is when we say, we're all in this together, we truly are all in this together. And it doesn't mean, if you weren't a chamber member that we were going to leave you off of the list. Certainly we are a membership-based organization, and we're able to function on a due structure from our members. But this was just the right thing to do. People needed help. People didn't know where to go. That includes the public, not knowing what's open, what's not open. There were a number of local resources that were trying to keep up with that. And we decided that we had, the software, the website, and the information sources to be that best source of accurate information. And it was a great collaboration with the town in order to push everyone through the chamber so we can promote members and non-members alike, so that people that wanted to go out or do takeout or have delivery, they knew who they could call. So it really was a good team effort, and I'm proud of the work that the chamber did during that period, because it really was something that was needed.
Yeah, it made it a lot easier for me to just take your list and make a story about it.
Well, we appreciate you supporting them too, Rich.
So, people are open now. There's, a lot of outdoor dining. I think that's the focus, but, spaced indoor dining. You mentioned a little bit that there's some guidelines from the town. What are some of the specifics, just so people know what is being done to keep them safe while they're eating?
Well, the guidelines were established by the state.
Right.
As far as distancing, sanitizing, PPE, and guidelines on, traffic coming in and out. What the town was able to do is those that needed to expand to an outside dining or expand upon their existing outside dining, there's normally a process that you would go through requiring, planning board approval, Board of Health, all the different boards that would weigh in on it. And it usually takes, several weeks to happen. There was a team put in place by the town. Melissa Tentaklis at the Economic Development Office was making sure that the businesses were getting the information, and these things were going through the police and safety, Board of Health, in a very expeditious manner so they could get these people back open. I think it's important for people to understand, because I do hear from time to time, wow, it looks like that restaurant's doing great. I saw a lot of people there. This has been devastating from an economic standpoint. And some nights you'll see some people and some nights you won't. And inside dining has been less adopted initially. I think people are a little bit nervous about that. But make no mistake, this is not business as usual from a P&L standpoint for these restaurants, but it is a step in the right direction.
And as far as your understanding, I know in another segment I talked to Sean Mcdonald of the Rebel Restaurant Group about what they're doing, but in general, across the board, as far as cleaning, extra cleaning, extra hand sanitizer, extra safety measures, what do you know as far as what restaurants in Burlington are doing in that regard?
Well, again, the reopening guidelines outline exactly what would be done. The sanitizing of tables and chairs and all surfaces that would be touched by anyone between guests coming in. PPE being worn by all of the restaurants. We met with all the restaurants, and we wanted to make sure they didn't really need the extra push from us. But this is one of those cases where we are in this all together, and the non-performance of any one restaurant would reflect not only in the Burlington restaurant community, but Massachusetts as a whole. We did not have to really push on that. People understand this. The one thing that we could not risk was going backwards. The governor is very data-driven and relies on those health indicators. We have to make sure that we continue to progress forward. I'm really proud of the way that the local restaurant community has been. It's not the easiest thing to be serving outside wearing a mask on a 95-degree day. These people, they're trying to pay their rent. They're out there doing it. So we ask that the public please be patient. This is a very difficult stage that we're in right now as we progress, hopefully, to the next stage and hopefully to a vaccine sometime shortly.
Yeah. And, so since outdoor dining has become available in, phase 3 of the reopening plan, Have you been around town? Does it look like, people are taking advantage of it?
Yeah, I would say certainly this is a tough area of the country to rely on outdoor dining. We've been very fortunate rain-wise. We are kind of going through a heat wave now, and it can be tough to sit outside, when it's 95 degrees. Most of them are shaded. I think we've seen a steady progression. But we do, here in Burlington, we've always relied on that daytime population to keep, feeding, I didn't mean to use that word, feeding as ironic that I put it in there, but to help the economy. And the daytime population right now is probably somewhere around 10% of what it was pre-COVID.
Yeah, and do you see that changing? Like more of the work staff and of the businesses that usually frequent these restaurants coming back to their offices, to the labs?
Well, that's kind of a dual-edged situation that we have here. We are predominantly a high-tech area where work from home, even though it was difficult in the beginning, it's possible. That we're not heavy manufacturing. Well, we do have some limited manufacturing. We have lab space. Those aren't the ones that drive the numbers that we've seen here. I think we'll see a steady increase, but it's going to be a slow increase. Keep in mind that health, child care, and school, it's all interrelated in whether or not the parents of these children can go back to work. So it's going to be a slow process. The businesses continue to survive, the high-tech businesses, with the ability for people to work at home, but it's going to be a while before we see those numbers come back to anything pre-COVID.
Yes. People always wondered how to solve Burlington's traffic issues, and I don't think this was the solution anybody wanted.
No, I think that is one of the benefits that come out of it, but it also reminds us that traffic is a sign of economic vitality. And this town in particular is very fortunate to have that commercial tax base that allows us as residents to get the services without having to pay for them through our residential taxes. So it's going to be a difficult road as a resident going forward. It's just a matter of economics. If the economy, the hotels and restaurants don't produce, the meals tax revenue and hotels tax revenue that we're used to, it's just a matter of dollars and cents. If there's less in there, I'm sure that there'll be some impact to services and/or employment at the town level.
Yeah. And if people are watching this, what would you say to them just to encourage them to try dining out in Burlington?
I think the most important thing, Rich, is we know that the restaurants and the businesses are doing their part. It's really incumbent upon every consumer to do it as well. I mean, we've all walked down the streets in different towns and you see someone wearing the mask, on their chin, or they've got it tucked behind their ear. It's important that when people are making decisions to go to a restaurant, they want to see that people are adhering to all of the practices from the staff to the customers as well. So I think it's certainly going to be everyone's decision what they feel safe with, but I can assure you from the business perspective that the restaurants are holding up their end, and we ask the customers do the same.
And looking into the future, what further steps what do you see sort of how this playing out? I know I'm asking you an impossible question, and what might what as a chamber do you see like as your role kind of moving forward?
Our role is to provide information, connections, and give people the best advice possible on what we think is going to happen, based on information that we receive directly from government sources or industry experts. What works in Burlington might be different than what works in Billerica. So it's important that for our members, we walk them through the process. We tell them how to get the assistance that they need, but we also collaborate on what we see going forward. Restaurants and hotels, as they begin to reopen and people feel comfortable traveling again, it will all come back, but it's going to take time, and it comes down to the individuals. What do you feel comfortable with as a consumer? And we want to make sure that the businesses are complying with all the regulations on their end so that that's not a decision maker in the equation. It'll be entirely up to the consumer.
Now, sort of a more grim question. Moving forward, let's say even we keep the numbers down in the state. People do the social distancing and the masks wearing and everything, but there's no vaccine until next year, or they don't get so low, that people are sort of very comfortable going indoors. What do you see happening, come October, November, when the weather gets colder and outdoor dining isn't available? Or are there ways to, have outdoor space heaters or something? Like, what do you see, come the end of fall?
Well, the question for restaurants is going to be a difficult one. While you can heat the air, you still have to have air moving. So the reason why outdoor dining is so open for people of all concerns right now is there's fresh air. If you now have to heat it and you're just you're trying to heat basically the whole earth,
yeah,
it's going to be very difficult. There's going to be some challenges. If the numbers continue to go down to the level that we hope they will, maybe there'll be some allowances for sides to be put on the outside with a certain amount of air going through. This is not the best area of the country to be dependent on outdoor dining. But I think as the numbers continue to go down, the governor has tied all of the reopening and the economic recovery to those numbers. So if it continues to go, we can advance, hopefully, slowly towards the new normal. And that's going to include, maybe some larger numbers on inside dining, some larger gathering inside at hotels and meeting spaces. That's really the only step that's left before we get back to, a vaccine. Allowing a little more density inside, and we're hoping that we can get some great results from some of the tests that are going on right now to get a vaccine out there. But I wish I had better news to say, yeah, it's all going to be back to normal in October, November. But the truth of the matter is, I don't really see a way we can get back there without full vaccine.
Yeah, I think that is probably true. Last thing, and we'll end on a more positive note. So like you said, things are open, people are shopping and dining. To get to this point, I know there was a lot of work by a lot of people. Yourself included, like you mentioned, Melissa, the economic development, Paul Sagarino, our town administrator, all the different restaurant owners and managers. Just talk about your sense of how Burlington weathered this, maybe, I don't know, as opposed to other towns, but just in general.
I think, first of all, the town itself, town government, by Paul Sagarino's leadership, as a numbers guy, he understands that the economy is really important to Burlington. So knowing that you had support at the town and the town was not going to be imposing additional regulations is important. Business relies on predictability. And I think right now, any sense of predictability that you can get on any level is good. The Chamber also has a Government Affairs Committee that meets, and while some companies have weathered the storm fairly well, they're very aware of those that are struggling, and they try to work on things that will help some of these small businesses. We've been pushing for a long time, shop local, and the urge to shop online. It does have an effect on the local economy. When you spend your money locally, it stays here. Through the tax base, through employment, and through supporting some of the local programs that, school programs or recreational programs get supported by the business community. It really is, it's heartwarming when you see people step up and they understand that while they have their own problems, it's a much larger problem. So being part of an organization that cares for the little guy, when the little guy or gal needs it, steps up and would support. And through social networks, people have been phenomenal in pointing out, hey, I just ate at this place, they're back open. That's a big part of it. When people see that their neighbors and their friends feel safe and had a great experience, that's what they're relying on. It's not really the marketing of the individual business, it's word of mouth. And when we thank the community for being able to help us with that.
Excellent. Well, I think that was all the questions that I had for today. I appreciate you taking some time and coming into the studio. People really can't see us, but we are about 8 feet apart looking at each other. It's a little different setup. That's why there's no wide shot this time. But we're making it work just like everyone else is trying to do. So thank you once again, and I'm sure I'll talk to you shortly about restaurants or something else business related.
Always happy to be here, Rich. Thank you.
We go now to my talk with Rebel Restaurant Group's Chief Executive Chef, Sean Mcdonald. Rebel Restaurants owns Tony C's on 3rd Ave and both Jack's Coal Fire Pizza and Temezcal here off of Wall Street. And as you can see behind me, both of them have expanded their outdoor dining to accommodate more customers. Let's check it out. And I am now joined by Sean Mcdonald, the Executive Chef for Rebel Restaurants. They have 3 different places in town: Tony C's, Jack's Coal Fire Pizza, and Temezcal, which I always kind of work on pronouncing. Sean, thanks for coming in.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So just wanted to kind of go back to, when all this kind of started to happen. How did Rebel Restaurants respond initially?
To go back to the beginning, March, Tony C's, we were ready for a big St. Patrick's Day. Corned beef was ready to go, and the news came in that it's time to shut the doors. So that was really the beginning. And like many other restaurateurs, it was short notice, and we didn't know how to react. And basically, when the governor gets on the TV and says all restaurants are to close starting Tuesday, it's not something you prepare for in the restaurant business. So
yeah, and were you able to do anything with all that food, all that corned beef you say you have? Get it anywhere?
Yeah, so we had to lay off a good amount of our staff as soon as the restaurants closed, and we furloughed them. But the kitchens, the restaurant, everything was full of food. Great food, prepared food, untouched food, and we had to do something with it. So I actually. I went around, we had, at that time, we had 11 locations. So I went around 11 locations and actually, gave out as much food as I could to the, to the employees and the staff members that needed it, that were, being furloughed, left without a job. And then we also, we donated to all the local food banks. People helping people here in Burlington received, I showed up every single day with my, with a trunk full of, great food, and they were able to utilize a good amount of it. But we also did that in some other communities in Boston as well, and in the Seaport area.
Well, it's good that it didn't go to waste, for sure.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure people helping people enjoyed having some high quality ingredients or things to work with. So as sort of time went on and the initial kind of takeout option became available, were you able to take advantage of that?
As a company, we decided it was very difficult. I mean, there was a lot of unknowns. At first it was, we're going to shut down for 3 weeks, and then, we didn't really know what the future was going to look like. But it was easier for us as an organization to shut down entirely, and really, take the time to evaluate what is our best option of getting through this time. And so we went the route of and did not open for takeout, just due to the uncertainty of. People weren't leaving their houses. They didn't want to go out, and we thought the takeout probably wouldn't be enough of a business plan to continue. And takeout's great, but in our restaurants, everything's done from scratch. So you have to bring in the prep cooks. You have to bring in the products. The deliveries have to roll in. The expenses just continue to roll, and to offer the products that we offer. If we don't have enough volume, if there's not enough of a demand for takeout, the food doesn't stay fresh. When you're making everything to order, it's a gamble. And if we don't have enough volume, it wasn't going to be enough for us.
Right. No, that makes sense. So you are open now. You have outside dining. What was some of the work that had to go into sort of rearranging things to get ready for this? I know you've expanded seating out into parking lots, but I'm sure there's also things that changed inside the restaurant as well. So, like, what was some of the work that you had to do to get ready for this?
Yeah, so we, early June, we decided it's time to open up. Given the the outdoor seating, at that time we were able to seat outdoors and do takeout deliveries, and there was a minimal amount of it was just minimal amount of inside. As long as our occupancy was to a point where we could serve enough people, it was a great idea. So what we did is you could drive around town and see we have a tent out in the parking lot at Jack's in Temescal, and at Tony's we have tables that wrap the building. We did whatever we could to get the occupancy to the point where we had enough tables to seat, and we also had enough space in between tables to make everyone feel comfortable with the COVID-19 restrictions. The sun plays a big part of that. Trying to get umbrellas and the rain. Trying to find covered space. But there's also the town was very very gracious to look at our plan. So each of our restaurants had to propose a plan to the town on how to safely serve out in the in the outdoors and in areas that weren't originally designated for outdoor dining. Like at Tony C's in Burlington, we had to put barricades up in the back of the building to protect the guest from from the cars that might be driving by. In the end, it looks great back there. We hung some lights, some string lights to give some lighting out there. We got some umbrellas and some picnic style benches that are easily sanitized and disinfected in between each guest use, and it showed like the town really loves the outdoor dining. So a lot of people are excited about outdoor dining.
And did you have to make changes like the employee flow inside the building to make sure people are staying some distance as much as they can, or what's sort of like the protocols inside?
Yeah, so if you go in any of our restaurants right now, you'll you usually walk in and you can notice there's arrows telling you which way to operate. All the arrows they put you in a certain flow. So if you're going in the building, you're going towards the right. If you're going to the bathrooms, you're going to the right, and then when you come out, you're hanging on the left hand side, and they direct you in the areas so people aren't bumping into each other's. Guests are asked to wear a mask when they enter the building and while they're being seated, and wear a mask wherever they can, at the times. But obviously, if you're going to eat and drink at a table, the mask is safe to not wear. So spacing the tables out is very important. The signage in the restaurant and the flow of guests, going to the bathroom, limit the amount of times they're up and about. The walkways are really designed for our staff to serve, and our staff wear a mask, at all times. They wear gloves when they're preparing the food, and they change gloves and wash hands and disinfect in between. But yeah, we have a good amount of signage in the building. Posters at the front doors, which are required by the Board of Health. Signage throughout the building to to direct the people of flow.
And did you have to make any changes in the kitchen just to try to keep employees a little bit more separated?
Well, some of that change is natural, meaning, now that we're at half occupancy and the sales aren't nearly what we're used to or accustomed to, the staffing is also the same. So, we've furloughed a good amount of employees, and we do not have nearly as many employees as we did previous to COVID-19. So some of that, works on its own. But most of the employees work in about an 8 to 10 foot area, holding down 2 stations, and they're fairly spread out. They wear a mask when they enter the building and until they leave the building. Hand washing and hand washing obviously is a number. In the kitchen, hand washing is number one. In the front of the house, the sanitizers, a little bit more used, a little bit more than the hand washing. But we have sanitizer at all the front doors. We have sanitizer in the kitchen, at the dish area. Anywhere in the building, there's sanitizer and hand washing. Soap and water obviously is much better. But the kitchen, essentially, we've been doing this for years. I mean, this is how we operate in the kitchen right now. We wear hats to cover any kind of hair, and we
Sure.
we wear gloves when we're touching food, and we sanitize and disinfect, and we're doing that. We've been doing this a long time. So in the kitchen, it's not as much of a change, more so than the mask covering the mouth and the nose.
Yeah, that's a good point. You're already sort of set up for safety when handling customers' food, so it sort of makes the transition a little bit easier. You mentioned bringing employees back. Are most of the employees that you have currently people who were working for you before all this?
So we we offered everyone their job back when we opened, and during there was about a 3-month gap of when we were closed for. A good amount of those people have moved out of the area. They might have been college students, now have moved back home where they're from. Some have moved location just because. Others, maybe didn't feel comfortable coming back to work yet. There was a wide variety of reasons why people might have come back or might not. But for the most part, we took a good amount of our, at least 70 to 80% of our staff came back to work and are currently still working with us.
That's excellent. And just what's your sense of how everybody feels? Are people comfortable? Are they happy to be back to work?
I think each day it gets a little bit better. I think in the beginning everyone was very scared, and we brought everyone back slowly. We brought them back about 4 weeks before we even opened to the public. We brought them back. We would bring 3 employees in at a time for a 3-hour period in between, and we'd do that 3 times a day just to, bring people back in the building. We did some training on COVID training and basically all the, everything we knew about sanitation before. On top of that, there was a whole new COVID training, and we taught them about CDC guidelines and ServSafe and all these new guidelines that we had to learn about. So that was our training. We did that about 4 weeks before we opened, and as time grew on and we started welcoming guests back in, there's a little more comfort because we know we disinfect in between each seating. We're wiping down tables and chairs and booths, and if there's any glass or plexiglass around them, we're cleaning considerably more in between a guest seating than we used to before. So there's definitely a better sense of comfort with the amount of cleaning we've been doing.
Excellent. And so, you've been open for I think you said about 6 weeks now?
About 6 weeks now, yes.
How has it been going? Are people coming in? I know you mentioned that you're a little bit lower occupancy, but, how are things going?
We've seen a great, in the beginning it was, a lot of people came out and just really supported us and said, glad to have you back, and we've been thinking about you, and there was a lot of support from the community, which was great. We're doing well, we're doing well, all things considered. Our takeout sales are up compared to, pre-COVID, delivery sales. So, we now, Feed Me Up is a local delivery service we use, and Uber Eats is another one we use. And all the delivery and takeout sales have helped as well as curbside. Now we offer three spaces in the front of the restaurants, and we bring the food out to the, curbside for any guests that do not feel comfortable. But we're optimistically positive about the sales and the guests that we're seeing, and would like some more, but we're very happy with what we're seeing currently.
And have the people who have been coming as guests been pretty responsible as far as following the guidelines that you have set up?
Well, we can go to the next question. It's very difficult. So. People look at us as, that our job is now we have to be the social police. Our job now we used to serve great food and give great service, and now, we have to monitor when people are standing up. Are they wearing the mask? And then they, not everybody wants to be micromanaged to the point where they come in for dinner, they want to relax, and but yeah, there's definitely a difficult challenge. Trying to adhere to all the rules and without upsetting someone's dining experience. Sometimes someone might see the bathroom's only 10 feet away, and they get up from their table without a mask and dart for the bathroom. But it's a slippery slope. Trying to discipline the guests that are patronizing your business.
Yeah, I think that's a situation that everyone in customer service is seeing these days.
Yes.
So overall, if there's people, we hit on a lot of these points, but I kind of wanted a sort of a recap. If somebody hasn't been out yet to eat because they're nervous, just what would you say to them just to kind of reassure them that it is a safe experience?
So we instituted a considerable amount of cleaning. So it's very difficult now to, you look at your P&L and your budgets, and the cost of cleaning have doubled. We buy disinfectant right now, and it's a pre-made disinfectant product that kills any kind of virus in 10 seconds. So, that's being sprayed on every table and every chair and every bench before and after guests arrive. The menus, most of the time you go to a restaurant and they hand you the menu. We've gone to a QR code, so we've developed a QR code that we stick right to the table. So when a guest joins us, they open their camera up, go to take a picture, and our menu will come right up on their smartphone. So we've gone to a paperless menu. Some people love it. Some people are looking for that paper copy, but we're trying to do everything we can so the guests can feel comfortable when they come in. That we don't have to wipe down menus. We don't. All the silverware is, we wash the silverware, we polish it, we wear gloves, and we roll the silverware, and we keep it in a nice clean area. So any kind of human touch, or any kind of, we make everything contactless right now. So when the server comes to take an order, they stand further enough apart, they're wearing a mask. We also have a company that comes in periodically and overnight, and they'll fog and disinfect the entire building. It's they wear backpacks and masks, and they basically just put a disinfectant over the entire restaurant. So some of the areas that the cracks and the little things you can't clean, that's another added safety that we've taken upon ourselves to make people feel comfortable to come in and join us.
So it seems like you're doing quite a bit to ensure customer safety.
It's a lot of work. It is. It's a lot of additional work that we love doing it, because that does make people feel comfortable, and it actually makes our staff feel more comfortable coming to work as well.
Excellent. Well, I think that's just about all the questions that I had for you. I think we got a pretty comprehensive look at what's being done, at least with Rebel Restaurant Group. So I appreciate your time and coming in and talking to us once again here in studio, which is a novelty for the show in the last few months. So.
Well, that's great. Well, tell your listeners, if they don't feel comfortable coming into the restaurant, we have outdoor dining, and we also have takeout, delivery, and curbside.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We go now to my conversation with Tuscan Brands General Manager Richard Burton about what is being done at Tuscan Kitchen, which has also expanded its outdoor dining, about what is being done in the restaurant to keep customers both safe and satisfied. Let's take a look. I'm now joined by Richard Burton, the General Manager of the Tuscan Brands. Richard, thanks for coming in and sharing your thoughts with us.
Absolutely, welcome to be here. Happy to be here.
So I just wanted to kind of go back a little bit. So when this first kind of all the shutdown happened, how did you guys respond? What did you have to do?
Well, the moment we heard about what was going on, we had sort of seen it coming for about 2 weeks beforehand. Business had already started getting slower. But the moment that we knew about unemployment for our team, we thought it was the most prudent thing to sort of do that as soon as possible and give them an opportunity to get on the line, so to speak, as quickly as possible. So we made the call to shut down interior business a couple days before the governor did, and get our team on unemployment as fast as possible, as a lot of people, and transition to takeout as quickly as we could. Cleared out our walk-ins, where we keep all of our food, preserved all that we could preserve, and donated the rest, and transitioned to a limited takeout menu run by a few key salary people that were still there. But we ended up having about 60 people go on unemployment.
Well, you were able to keep some people on to help with the takeout.
A couple, yeah, but the takeout volume at our restaurant we're not known for takeout. So we transitioned to do it as much as possible, but we're not a pizza joint, so that's not a big part of our business, and so people didn't know it right away. So it wasn't that busy, probably about 5% of our normal business, but enough to keep some people employed, yes.
Yeah. And were you able to bring people back now that things are reopening?
The moment we got the plan to get people back in, like that it was going to happen, and it was a little, it wasn't as smooth a process of finding out as I would have liked. It was sort of, we knew it was coming, but we didn't know when, and then the call went ahead from the governor. As soon as that call came ahead, we had everyone in a week before to sort of reintroduce them to the brand, because it had been months, 2.5 months they hadn't worked. Reintroduce them to our food, clean the restaurant top to bottom, and then do basically a weeks-long training to get them ready for the new procedures that we've adopted to serve in this time, because it's unlike anything else we've done before.
And what are some of those like new procedures?
Well, just things like how to deal with guests who are afraid and how to put them more at ease, the soft skills of that, to cleaning tables as well as chairs. We always clean tables, but now we have to clean the chairs. We have to clean the armrests, making sure that my team is wearing masks at all times and using fresh gloves at every single table visit. So they're switching out gloves 30 times a night sometimes, 40 times a night. How to make sure my line, the guys that cook in the kitchen, where it can be a lot hotter than the rest of the restaurant because they're around fire all the time. How to keep them cool and hydrated while also keeping their mask above their nose and making sure that they're using gloves for every plating and they're not wiping their forehead where it's sweating, and just teaching them the tools and the tricks and giving them the things they need to be successful, safe for themselves, and to make sure our guests are safe. There's more to it. We had to figure out a way to get the menu to the guest, because one option is throwing out 2,000 pieces of paper a week because we can't wipe down our own menus. That's part of the rule. So we transitioned to a digital menu, something that has taken most of our guests getting used to, but for the most part they've embraced it, and it's great. We're saving paper and they're used to touching their own phones, so now we have their menus there. So it's been a lot of different things to get used to this. And takeout's still doing well, so that's a good part. People are still comfortable doing takeout. I think some people aren't comfortable going out.
Yeah.
So a lot of different things.
And how has your team adjusted to all the new procedures? And how do you think they're feeling about being back at work?
For the most part, they're ecstatic to be back at work. Most of the people that gravitate towards the hospitality business genuinely like making people happy. It's why they stay in the business or choose the business. So the very act of being able to, we try to simplify things, serving food and booze to make people happy. The act of actually being able to do that again, most of the team is really happy to do it. There's been some pushbacks as far as, not pushback, I would say, more reluctance to learn new tricks when it comes to some of the things that we've had to do. But for the most part, they've embraced it and they realize that this is what we need to do right now to make people safe and to have a business going forward.
Yeah, excellent. And so since the reopening happened, how has it been? Like, have you seen people starting to come back?
Yes, I've never worked in a restaurant where volume is dependent on the weather so much. It plays a huge part. If it's a gorgeous 80-degree day, everyone wants to sit on the patio. We're fortunate we have a decent-sized patio, so we can be busy. The days when it rains or it's extremely hot, as we've had a couple of recently, volume's a little slower. But for the most part, being open is better than not being open for interior dining and exterior dining, not just takeout. But it's still not back all the way. We rely on function business, so private parties and things like that, and we're limited with what we can offer when it comes to that. So we're not fully back yet, but every step is a step in the right direction. So.
Yeah. And were you able to expand your outdoor seating area? Or?
We were. Well, we're fortunate that we have the entire length of our building has an outdoor patio, and so we've basically used that. In years past, we hadn't. So that's helped us almost double our space, which is really nice. So it helps offset the spacing we did on the interior of the restaurant, in a sense. What we normally have, doing 6 feet apart from the seats, basically, took our tables in half inside when we did it that way, and then being able to have outdoors a little bit more than we used to, it's helped offset that a little bit. So that's been useful. Yeah.
And what kind of procedures do you have in place as far as for guests, if they would need to use the restroom? Is there certain walkways laid out? I've heard that
yes.
some places kind of have that kind of set up.
All of that. We try to manage the expectations from the get-go. So when they make a reservation, we try to let them know a mask is required when you're walking around the restaurant, but at your table you can take it off. If you're going to the restroom, please put your mask back on, those sorts of things. We have masks. We have definitely given masks to guests who forgot theirs in the car or forgot to bring it. And then we have pathways marked in the restaurant. And they're, we haven't had a need for the socially distanced spots at the hostess, but we have those laid out. Normally we have a pretty good pacing of the restaurant as far as guests coming in. We've tried to manage that so that not 20 people are waiting at the front door at the same time. Same thing with the restaurant, the restroom. So yeah, we've tried to make it easy for our guests. They have a hard enough time getting out.
Yeah.
So
We've all been there where you get halfway across the parking lot and you're like, my mask. I feel too much wind on my face. Something's wrong.
It's not usual.
I know, or I understand that one of the steps to reopening was getting clearance from the Board of Health. How was that process?
Super easy.
Yeah.
Super easy. We have a great relationship with the town of Burlington, and we know that they're our partner in this. They want the same thing we want. So it was very easy. Very easy.
So, overall, you said you had guests, people are coming back. How do people, do they seem comfortable? Do they seem to be enjoying themselves? Do they seem happy to be able to, finally eat somewhere besides their own kitchen table?
For the most part, absolutely. And happy isn't the word. For the most part, a lot of our guests are ecstatic to be out. They love having us cook for them. They love being able to get a cocktail. You can buy wine, you can buy beer. Not everyone's going to be making a cocktail at home. So they love that aspect of it. We definitely have a couple of guests who are still very worried about what's going on, and we try to identify them and make sure that they are aware of the steps that we're taking, and so that we can sort of show them that they are safe, they're comfortable, and we have their priorities are our priorities. So for the most part, people are ecstatic to be out, though.
Yeah. And how do you see this kind of going on? Like right now, it's great. It'll be great in September, October. Looking ahead, what do you think? Just a completely indoor? Is there ways to sort of keep people comfortable outside when it gets a little chillier?
Yeah, we've doubled up on all of our heat lamps and things like that. Our heaters outside. We've got more than we need right now. But in anticipation of extending those 50-degree nights, we might need them outside. Most of our guests right now prefer to sit outside, which is why when it rains or it's too hot, business suffers because the outdoors isn't an available option. We will see people sitting inside, but I think that I guess we're all hopeful for treatment or a cure as soon as the weather turns cold, because it stays cold for a while in Massachusetts. And so we're genuinely worried about what that will be. We're doing everything we can. We're looking at installing plexiglass shields in between tables for that time when they don't have an option to go outside. And we're looking at all the options we can do. We've already used all of our function space for main dining, that sort of thing. But it's going to be a challenge, and we're fortunate we have a lot of footprint. There's restaurants out there that don't.
I was about to say that. You guys do have quite a bit of space inside, so that must sort of help, have more tables.
It does.
Space.
It gives us some more flexibility, and we're going to use that flexibility as much as we can when it gets cold. Yeah.
And just, last thing, sort of to recap, we've talked about all the procedures in place, all the safety measures you guys are taking. Just what would you say to customers who, haven't made that venture out yet, just to reassure them that, it's, a safe experience?
I've got a grandma. My team have grandmas. We are taking the same precautions that they are. That simple. We don't want to get anyone sick. We don't want to get ourselves sick. And we're doing everything we can to make sure that eating in our restaurant is just as safe as eating anywhere else. From what you touch, from those around you, from everything the CDC has laid out for us and the state of Massachusetts has laid out for us to be as safe as possible. We care about our guests. We do, and we don't want them being exposed at our restaurant. So we're going to take every precaution we can.
Richard Burton, General Manager of Tuscan Brands, thank you very much for coming in, sharing your thoughts, and letting us know sort of on a more granular level what's going down behind the scenes and at the restaurant.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So there you have it. Burlington restaurants, and Phase 3 of the state's reopening plan. I'd like to thank my guest, Burlington Area Chamber of Commerce President Rick Parker, Rebel Restaurants Executive Chef Sean McDonald, and Tuscan Brands General Manager Richard Burton. I'd also like to thank all of you for watching. We'll be back next month with another edition of BNews in Depth, and we'll see you then.